Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our Farming RPG tutorial series. So what we have so far is that we can talk to our villages over here. And we have a basic relationship system, but they don't really turn and face you, so it's kind of weird to have them talk to you over here, but then they're not looking at you. So to fix that, let's go on over to our interactable character class. Over in the pickup function, we need a new function that looks at the player. So this causes the character to look at the player. And this should be called somewhere here. Let's clean up this function a little bit. So let's take the contents over here in pickup. Create a new function. Call it trigger dialog. Because that's what this line of code does. And then we'll just call it over here. That way this function is a lot cleaner. So now we want the character to look at the player, but first we need to calculate the rotation. We need to calculate the rotation for it to look at the player. First, we need to get the player's transform. And now that we have the transform, we need to get a vector that points in the direction of the player. So to calculate the direction from a start point to an end destination, you have to take the end destination, which is the player, minus the start position, which is this NPCs. Now this direction, we only want the X and Z values. Because if you look at the town, we only want him turning like this. You don't want him to turn like that to face the player. It would be weird. You have to force the y-axis to be 0. And now we need to convert this vector, this direction vector, into a rotation, which Unity uses quaternions to calculate rotation. So quaternion loop rotation basically takes in the vector and converts it into a quaternion value. There. And now we are able to look at the player. Let's test this out. Yep, he looks at the player now. Feels so unnatural for someone to just teleport their body towards you. So we want a little bit of transition here. So let's make a coroutine instead. IE numerator look at. And then we take in a quaternion value. Rotation. And then create a while loop that will continue running until the rotation is set to the given rotation. For this, we'll be using quaternion.rotate towards, and then from being transform.rotation, the current rotation, and then next it's the final rotation it should go towards, and then next is about the speed. So like how many degrees per delta time. I fix that. Let's set it to about 720. Forgot to call this coroutine. But it works. Now he turns towards us. But it's a bit weird to just leave them hanging there, staring at where you were, and then you can walk around like that. So let's make it so that they return to their original rotations after you're done talking to them. Let's declare a variable. Call this default rotation. This is its original position before it turns to see you. Then we set a default rotation over in start to our transform rotation. And now you can just create a function to reset the rotation. And we should call this on dialog end. We're just adding this to the on dialog end event. And now let's see it happen. Yep, so now he looks back to where he was. Oh, but see, there's a bug. If you close the conversation, and before he turns back, and then you try to talk to him again, now the character isn't able to turn back. This is because the coroutine doesn't end until the transform rotation is set to the given rotation. This is all well and good until you start calling this coroutine more than once at the same time. Then both runs of this coroutine would be stuck in this while loop, and then they're just fighting each other to the point where the character isn't able to move. So we have to make it so that this coroutine can only be called one at a time. So let's add a boolean is turning. And by default it's false. And now over here we should check the coroutine is already running. Okay, so if this is the first time we're calling this coroutine, the set is turning is true, and then you'll continue over here. And once it's done, is turning is false. Right. But if we're stuck in this while loop, and this while loop has not finished executing, then this turning would be true. And then if this happens to be called again, we're going to force it to be false. And this is where we can break out of the loop. So if this turning happens to be false here, that means another coroutine is already just executed this bit of code here. And that is when we break. Yep, it works. So it stops the execution of the coroutine, and he's never stuck. At most, he just stops mid-turn. Yeah, so at worst, he stops mid-turn because both coroutines stop. And once the conversation ends, he's able to go back because there's no coroutine currently executing. So it's just as we want it. So now we are done with our turning system. Let's give our character some gifts. So first off, we have to check if the player is holding anything to start our gift giving sequence. So for that, we'll need a function. Let's organize our code a little bit first. Rotation related functions here, and then our conversations are here. Okay, so let's create a function over here, call it gift dialog, and this function should be put over here. So the criteria to trigger this function is if the player is holding an item. Just like what we did with a shipping bin over here. We checked if the player is holding something before doing any interactions. Likewise, over here, just have to do if inventory manager dot instance dot slot equipped. Then we trigger the gift dialog function, and this one handles the gift giving aspect of the interaction, and this code should not execute. So let's return. And now the gift giving. Now when the player is giving something to a character, there's gonna be 3 possible reactions. He's either gonna like it, dislike it, or he's gonna be neutral about it. So like, dislike, neutral. So over in relationships stats, create a new enum. Let's call this gift reaction. Then over here, let's create a function. It's gonna take in the character data because it has the list of likes and dislikes, and then the item data itself, and then we just check each list. So it's gonna check each list, and if there's nothing in this list, that means it doesn't like or dislike it. So by default, it's going to return if reaction dot neutral. So let's check the list of like items first. And likewise, if it dislikes it, its dislikes contains the item, it's going to return dislike. Simple. Oh yeah. Now when a character receives a gift, based on their reaction, they should have a dialogue for each one of them. So let's create the dialogues for these. Now we can go ahead and write the dialogues. And let's do the same for Ben. Okay, so now that we've given some lines, let's go back to our give dialog. Now, before we handle the reaction of the NPC, we have to check if the player is able to give a gift to begin with. And there are two cases in which he can't. It's if the character's not unlocked yet, or the character has already been given a gift today. Because in every Harvest Moon game, you can only give one gift a day to a character. So let's do that. First, we need a boolean. Not in character data, but in NPC relationship state. And then we need a check, just like first conversation of the day, same logic. And then over in, it's handled in Game State Manager. On day reset, if given today is false. Now back over here, let's have a function that checks eligible for gift. And true, unless the checks prove otherwise. And with that, we can just put the checks here. But when it stops the execution of the code, I think there should be a message that informs the player why he couldn't give his gift to the character. But instead, let's create a function that handles that for us over in Dialog Manager. So first, we need the dialog line. And there is no speaker because it's a simple message. This is our list to return. And then list to return, add. And we just have to return this list. And all that just to create a simple message. Now we can do this. Dialog manager.instance.dialog. Create simple message, and then we can just write likewise over here. Now let's see if the rejections work. If I were to start a new game and meet this guy for the first time. Yep, so it says you have not unlocked this character yet. So now we can just work on handling our gifts. So first we need to get the hand slot, the item slot data of what the player is holding. Do this by calling the function getEquipped slot Return. And by default, dialog to have is a character for gift dialog. Just paste this over here and remove this. On default, when the dialog ends, we have some things that we need to do, namely set the gift given today to true, and then we have to consume the item. And now, since we have 3 possible reactions, we can do a switch, get reaction to gift. And for balancing, let's give it, so over here, it should be worth 80 friendship points. And if it's dislike, it should be negative 20. And if it's neutral, it should be 20. Like should be 4 times the points. With that, we also have birthdays, right? So we can either have like a generic dialogue for birthdays, or we can have let's do separate ones for this. That way we have more control. Yeah, so we have this. We need to check if it's the birthday, right? So we need a function over in relationship stats. And then we just have to deal with 2 timestamps. It's for birthday, and then the time now. For it to be a birthday, it's the day and the season has to match. And then we need to calculate the friendship points to add. So over here, points to add is 80. The birthday, the dialog to have is the birthday one. Do this for the other ones as well. And then the friendships, let's have it multiply by 8. Because the birthdays are only once a year, so points to add. And then relationship stats dot add friend points. It's to add. Yeah, so if it's his birthday and you give a really horrible gift, you lose more points. And if it's a gift he really likes, you get way more points. And yeah. We're gonna toss this to an int. Oh wait. Should just be an int to begin with. Now let's see this in action. I'm gonna have Ben's birthday is going to be on the 5th of spring. And Jeff's birthday is going to be on the 6th of spring. And Ben likes tomatoes, and Jeff likes cabbages. And then Ben dislikes cabbages. Let's just make an item. Okay, let's do a pumpkin. Just for now. Oh, there's a pumpkin. And this to the item list. And let's make it so that Ben, he likes pumpkins, but then he dislikes cabbages. And then he's neutral towards tomatoes. That way we have 3 items to test. Okay. Let's go. Edit all players' inventory to have a ton of stuff. So it has like 10 pumpkins. 10 cabbages. And 10 tomatoes. Okay, now let's see its reaction to each one. So if I give Ben a cabbage, he says, this isn't quite what I like. We're giving him a gift today. And then if I give him a tomato, he's neutral about it. He doesn't like or dislike it, so he has this reaction. Now if I give him a pumpkin, yeah, he really likes it. When's his birthday? Spring 5. Okay. And then if it's his birthday, and I give him a pumpkin, yeah, he has this reaction. Yep. So the gift giving system works. Now let's have a UI user interface to display our progress with our friendships. So first, let's set up a relationship panel screen over here. It's gonna be exactly like our shop panel. So you can just duplicate this. So I found myself some assets that we can use from Open Game Art. So we download them, and also I've made some placeholder portraits that we can use for our characters. So let's drag them over in imported asset UI like this, and then change the texture type to sprite mode multiple, apply, and then in sprite editor slice this by cell size. It's 80 by 80. And slice this vertically. For this, we need to unpack completely because we're creating a completely different thing. Okay, now we can make this UI prefab. Should not have a shop listing. Instead, over in the UI folder, let's create a new class. And put it here. The logic is rather similar to shop listing. Except it takes in all character data. And like the hot sprites that we need to switch the images off. Finally, we get to our UI elements. We need a function to display. Just like this shop listing. Since we need the character data for the portrait, we'll take in character data. And the relationship state. And then set the values accordingly. Oh, we have the portrait image here. And now we need to store it over in the character data. So let's go to character data. And Ben can look like this, and Jeff looks like this. And we'll go back here. Set the portrait to this. The new text is relationship. And now to calculate how many hearts we have. A new function called display hearts in that number. Wait, actually we don't need this since it's only one. We don't need this. It's a display. It's only one function that handles it. So to display our hearts, it's just a relationship dot hearts. Converts the friendship points to hearts. So first, everything, we should reset everything. Then progressively fill it according to the number given. Do this with a for loop. Dot right. And with that, we just have to portrait is this, name is this, and our hearts are over here. There. Empty heart looks like this. Full heart looks like this. Just like our shop, we need a listing manager, which has the exact same logic as this. Now we could always just copy and paste the code. It's better to have both of them inherit from a class. So let's make a base class to handle this. Call this listing manager. Which is exactly like our shop listing manager. So minimally it should have a prefab to instantiate. And then we have the listing grid. And over here, we have a render function. But since it's not just a shop, we want it for our relationship as well. Just make it more generic, call it render. Now it's not, and the type is rather dependent. If it's a shop listing manager, it's going to be item data. And for NPC listing manager, it's gonna be NPC. It's gonna be our relationship listing. It's gonna be our relationship state. Alright. So what you can do is just give it a generic type. Put a T here. It's gonna be T. It's not going to be called shop items anymore. I'm going to call this list items. I'm going to instantiate the prefab on the listing grid. And it's going to display that. Oh, but we can't do that because it doesn't have the type. So let's delegate this to another function. Protected abstract void display listing. So abstract means that we don't have to define it here, but we'll define it in its children. It's an abstract class. It means the base class itself will never be instantiated. And make it so that it will be implemented. Display listing. But the display listing taken listing item and we'll just pass these values in for our children classes to implement later. Now, shop listing manager should not inherit from modern behavior from listing manager item data. So now we define the T type here as item data. Now there's an error because we have not implemented our abstract class. So we can just get rid of our render shop function because the rendering is handled in our parent class. And now all we need to do is implement how we're going to display it. Rid of this as well. And display with this thing. Because this game object is the prefab that it was instantiated. So over here we get the shop listing and then we just display it. And that's about it for this one. But then there'll be errors in where the render function is called since we just deleted it. So let's go over into UI Manager because it's where it's called. Render shop should not exist anymore, as you can see. So should call the render function instead, which is basically the same thing. Now let us go over into shop listing entry prefab. We have to reset it again. Shop entry. Oh, should be in assets. Shop entry. And now when we go over to the shop, everything just works the same way. So yeah, it works. Now we can create our NPC relationship listing manager. Just call this relationship listing manager. And then we just inherit from listing manager NPC relationship state. Now we just need to override display listing. Now we basically run into a problem. As you can see, our listing object over here takes in the NPC relationship state as well as the character data. But we don't have the character data, we only have the relationship. Now what we did over for items is have an index that has every item in it. But the problem with this setup is that we have to keep adding to this index list every time we add a new item or a new character, which is kind of a hassle. So instead, let's rename this to resources so that we can just access the folder programmatically, so we don't have to create a new index every time and just add to it, because it's too much of a hassle. So let's do function called void load list data. And over here, this is our load function. Character data. And just use resources. So it allows us to find and access our scriptable objects over in the resources folder. And then just load all assets of type character data over in the characters folder. And now that it's an array, we need to convert it to a list. So using system.link, convert the database into a list. So first, we need to check if characters have already been loaded. So it's now. Need to load characters. And now just like a little item index that lets us get an item from string, we can get the character data from string. Just characters that find the name. Right. So now we're able to get the character data. this is confusing, we just call this relationship. Relationship name. Listing game object dot get component NPC relationship listing dot display. Now we can key in the character data and relationship. Now over here in our relationship panel, go to the relationship listing manager, and our grid is this. Our entry prefab is over here. Okay, and now at the panel. Okay, now the thing is, we haven't really decided where we want to go with the UI design. Whether we want it to be a panel or system, or in the newer games, or we could follow the older games where there's like a menu and then you navigate to each panel. So we'll decide on that in a future part, but for now, as a temporary solution, let's just toggle it in the player controller. For now, we toggle it in get key down with the R key. Just for now. It was just a quick fix, so it's gonna be quite a crude solution, but this will do for now. Toggle relationship. And then if it's active, we should dot display, and you call the render function relationship stats dot relationships. Okay. Now it should work. There. Now I can see my relationships with these two people. Cabinets. And let's offer our gifts. Alright, good morning. Our relationship progresses quite nicely. Oh, it's its birthday. And we get a jump into hearts because of the 8 times multiplier boost. And Jeff's birthday is coming up on the 6th day. Let's try that. I just give him something that he doesn't like that much. He's neutral about. It's only 1 heart. Yep, and that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like this video so that we can reach more people, comment and subscribe. If you like to support the channel, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where you have access to the files, project files and articles that will help you. And yeah, we'll see you next time.